The current influx, if not halted, threatens to overwhelm our immigration system and our communities and poses unacceptable dangers to the entire nation. Have to have our borders. Can't let drugs come in. It's not just people. It's people, it's drugs, it's human traffickers. Human trafficking is now at the highest level in the world that it's ever been. That's because of the internet. Think of it, human trafficking. You think back 200 years, 500 years, human trafficking, where they steal children, in many cases women, unfortunately. They steal women. They're human traffickers, the lowest scum on earth, the lowest scum on earth.
And Kennedy, the other thing is, in these caravans, what the Department of Homeland Security is reporting, that the number of sexual assaults happening along this route, and not just along, and the caravan, as Jesse was saying, about 1,600 migrants try to cross the border a day. They're finding repeated incidents of sexual assault for children even. I mean, this is happening across the board.
Yeah, that's horrible. I mean, we saw some of that, unfortunately, in the shelters in the aftermath of Hurricane Florence. And it's, you know, an unfortunate aspect of human nature.
No. Really, to me, is not a right-left issue. This is the fact that you have a humanitarian crisis with children being sent to the hospital as they have to stop at these way stations. They're dehydrated. Some have been victims of sexual assault. If they get here, well, it's not true.
I said not good.
In that tweet, could you address that specifically? And the president saying that there are criminals and unknown Middle Easterners mixed in that caravan.
Well, look, we know when you got a large population that come in the United States illegally, there's going to be a certain amount of criminals, and they're going to put themselves in that group. We know for a fact, based on intelligence reports, that these cartels and the smuggling organizations, they'll push a large group of family units in one area to tie the Border Patrol assets up. And while the Border Patrol assets are tied up dealing with these families, they're pushing drugs and other bad people through another part of the border because Border Patrol is totally tied up. And this is what frustrates you, is that the members of Congress, they know what the loopholes are. They can close them. You know, you got these men and women standing on the border, you know, strapping a gun to the hip, defending this nation, and they need help. And you would think members of Congress, whether you're Republican or Democrat, would want to help secure our border. I mean, that's their #1 responsibility. Thank God we got a president sitting in the White House who understands this and has the backs of these 20,000 men and women that wants to secure our border. I mean, I cannot believe we're even discussing that this is an issue at this point.
Well, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is accusing the caravan of inciting violence for political reasons. He's issued a statement, a very formal one, saying this: many migrants are attempting to transit these countries and in the process are violating their sovereignty, their laws and their procedures. As President Trump has stated, consistent with U.S. law, the U.S. will not allow illegal immigrants to enter or remain in the U.S. We are concerned that these migrants may be victimized by human smugglers or others who would exploit them. We also are deeply concerned by the violence provoked by some members of the group, as well as the apparent political motivation of some organizers of the caravan. If you could address that.
Look, great question. I'm glad you asked it, because this is something nobody wants to talk about, especially Democrats, right? They want to entice people to come to this country, offering low bars for asylum. They want to offer sanctuary cities. You know, they support sanctuary cities where they think they can go to a place to be protected from ICE. They don't want to fund ICE for the number of beds they need. You know, they want to abolish ICE. And this entices more people to make this dangerous journey. And these people don't come by themselves. They hire criminal organizations to get to the country. And in my 34 years, I have seen numerous women raped. I've seen children die, you know, making that trip. You know, I was in Phoenix, Arizona, when aliens were held hostage because their smuggling fees doubled, and they were tortured and killed. I mean, I was in the back of a tractor trailer with 19 dead aliens, including a 5-year-old little boy that suffocated to death. When you entice people to come to this country, when you have weak immigration laws, that's what happens. These people are at the mercy of criminal organizations who don't care about them at all. They're a commodity. They're there to make money. And this is the other side of the story. This is not just about law enforcement. It's about saving lives. And nobody wants to talk about that, especially Democrats. So when they throw out abolish ICE, and they throw out sanctuary cities, let's protect them and keep them in the United States and protect them from ICE. Now, they want to keep them in the United States illegally, but they don't want to build a wall to keep them out. That sends a message to people to make that journey, and more people are going to be victimized because of it.
Well, smugglers and traffickers know this. In fact, they know our immigration laws much better than many members of Congress.
They are using this as a fast pass to get illegal aliens into America. The result is an explosion in the number of families arriving at our borders and a massive spike in the number of fake families showing up. They know if they pretend they're together, they're likely to get in for good. And quickly, the third category is unaccompanied children. Because of outdated laws, we cannot send kids who show up alone back to their home countries and to their families. They have to be transferred to the Department of Health and Human Services, which places them with sponsors or relatives in America. The result is we see more and more of them every day. Parents are making the unconscionable decision to send children on long, dangerous, and sometimes deadly journeys to our country. We are busting at the seams. HHS is out of capacity, and under the law, CBP must transfer these kids to HHS. These loopholes serve as a giant magnet, which is now resulting in a humanitarian catastrophe. Our system was simply not built to handle this influx of families and children. The human toll is real and shocking. Women are being trafficked and raped. In fact, 1 out of 3 women report they are sexually assaulted on the journey to our borders. Kids are getting abused. They're getting sick, very sick. Many of them are being recycled and used by smugglers to get more people into the United States. And nearly 70% of illegal aliens report being victims of violence along the journey. 70% of those traveling north to our country. Our hearts break for families who have lost children and those who are affected by this violence. We're doing everything we can to ensure rapid medical care when needed. But the men and women at CBP and ICE are doing the best they can with what they have, but they don't have the facilities, the resources, or the legal authorities to keep up with this crisis. Only Congress can give them that.
But the challenge has always been the lack of support from Washington, D.C. To have a chief executive finally recognize that it's going to take Washington acting to address this issue is really heartening from my perspective, having basically been ignored for those 8 years as I was the governor in the previous administration. But it's this message that comes that from the media, from those that for whatever reason don't want to secure that border, that you can come and be rewarded. That's got to stop. And one of the ways to do that is obviously with a clear message to those that are trying to use that border as a access into the United States is there's not a reward anymore. Don't come. When the summertime gets here, the humanitarian issue here, Mr. President, that all too often doesn't get talked about. I mean, the lives that are lost in Mexico, in the desert Southwest, in that region of Texas that is incredibly inhospitable, when you're out there trying to cross it. I mean, that's the heart-rending side of the story, Mr. President, that you're trying to address here. And, I know here over the course of the last couple of weeks, there's been some stories about young people who lost their lives, a couple of young people who lost their lives, and our hearts go out for them. But what about the literally hundreds of people who have died trying to cross that border because of the incentive that people have given them, all of these different incentives to come and penetrate that border? And you're standing up and saying, don't come. Don't put your family in jeopardy. I'd personally like to see the media really get, focused on those stories about what you're doing to stop that type of danger and frankly, hostility to these individuals. Building that border security is the most powerful message that we can send. But the most powerful message is from the chief executive of the the United States standing up and saying, Congress, you got a responsibility, a duty to protect and defend the people of this country.
And remember this, the coyotes, these are bad ones. The coyotes, but not stupid. They know our laws better than the people that wrote them. The coyotes are using children to gain access into this country. They're using these children. They're not with families. They're using the children. They're taking the children. And then they dispose of the children after they're done. This has been going on for years. This isn't unique to us, but we want to stop it. Secretary, if I could ask you to just talk a little bit about the children's situation and how sick some of these children are by the time they get to the border.
Sure, Mr. President. Thank you very much, and thank you for your strong leadership in the efforts to secure our borders and fix our terribly broken immigration system. We at HHS have a role in addressing the tragic consequences of this broken system through caring for these unaccompanied alien children, or UACs. These are minors who arrive at the border without their parents. Traveling to the U.S. border is extremely dangerous, with minors suffering physical, mental, or sexual trauma on the way to this country. Parents should not send their kids on this journey. This is not a compassionate act, it is a dangerous act. It is endangering your children. Unfortunately, more and more minors have been arriving at our border over the last year. When UAC are apprehended at the border, the Department of Homeland Security takes them into custody. DHS then refers them to HHS, where we then select a grantee to care for them until we can release them to a suitable sponsor. While we saw a dramatic drop in the number of unaccompanied children arriving after the president took office, the numbers are now rising significantly. In calendar year 2017, we received approximately 29,000 unaccompanied children. In calendar year 2018, we received approximately 51,000 unaccompanied alien children referrals, almost doubling from the previous year. Currently, there are almost 13,000 unaccompanied alien children in our care, and we expect that number to rise during the new year. We brought more capacity online to address the situation, almost doubling our capacity in the past year. But having to continually expand capacity is simply a symptom of a broken system. Caring for unaccompanied alien children in an appropriate environment is also incredibly expensive. Care for UAC in fiscal year 2018 cost about $2 billion just for that. And we expect something similar for this coming year unless the situation is addressed. Imagine if we secured our border and we didn't have to spend that $2 billion caring for these kids, what we could do with that $2 billion. We also have had to provide technical assistance and surge capacity to help address medical needs of both adult and children migrants when they arrive in DHS facilities. We're proud of the standards that we set for the care of these kids in the Unaccompanied Alien Children program, but this is a tragic, unsustainable situation that will continue until our immigration system is fixed. As the President mentioned, we need a system that discourages parents from working with smugglers to bring minors into our country on this dangerous journey, and we need it now. And I also want to note, Mr. President, that great work you did with President Xi on getting fentanyl scheduled so that it's a crime there to cut down on the flow of fentanyl into this country. If we do not have border security on our southern border, it's going to redirect to Mexico, and it's going to come in from there and keep killing American citizens, even with China scheduling and stopping the flow from China. We'll get it out of Mexico if we don't get this border secured with a wall.
Hey everybody, this is Deb, and I wanted to put together all these different clips. I've been wanting to do this video for quite a while. As you can see, some of the clips were actually from back in October and early November, but I just needed to impress on people that it's not about immigration. It really isn't. It isn't about whether we want or don't want certain people in our country. What it's about is human trafficking and drug trafficking and some bad guys like in the MS-13 gang. So when you look at this and when you're talking to people about it, I wanted to put this out because it shows the different perspectives. You know, there was an ICE officer, and we have President Trump, and we have some of his cabinet members, and they're all saying the same thing, that there is a huge amount of human trafficking going on. Children are being hurt. It's a dangerous trip. sexual assaults are happening along the way. It's dangerous for them to do that, to make this trip. And we need to have the border wall to secure that border so people will understand they can't just come up and get in. And if they know that there's a border wall and they're not going to be allowed in unless they come in legally, I think it's going to stop a lot of this trafficking. So I really think that this is a major reason why President Trump is saying this. So I wanted to put these together and show you that it's not just him saying it. There are a lot of people who are acknowledging that this is a huge human trafficking issue. And if we can stop human trafficking, that's what needs to happen. And it doesn't matter what nationality these people are. It's cruel to entice people to come here with the knowledge that a large portion of them are going to be trafficked. With the women and children, a large number of them are going to be sexually assaulted. And that is just abhorrent to me. And I don't really care if YouTube ends up demonetizing this or what. If they have advertisers that think that this kind of stuff, that human trafficking is okay, and opening up the doors for all these women and children to be sexually assaulted is fine, then they need to get new advertisers, because this is something that needs to stop. And you talk about social change, this is a social change that needs to stop. We need the end of human trafficking. It is abhorrent. Opening the doors for people to come up here and leading them on in the way that they do, whoever is involved in that, whether they're Democrats or whether they're somebody who is a lawyer and they're making money off of it or some other group, I don't care. It needs to stop, because we're endangering a lot of lives this way. So I wanted to put this out there. Like I said, the clips are from various things. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find all the links to them, because I've had some of the clips for a little while. But I will try, and I'll put them down below if I get them. But several of them were from this cabinet meeting that just happened on January 2nd. So I will link to that below. It's kind of a long meeting, but I picked out the best parts, I thought, and the parts that dealt with this whole issue of human trafficking and the other dangers that are inherent in not having a wall. I think it's very important that we get this wall built. So we need to put pressure on these people so that they will do this. It's got to be done. One way or the other, it's got to be done. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.
The human traffickers, the lowest scum on earth. The lowest scum on earth.